So recently I was watching Bethany from the channel called Stop the Shunning. Kudos to her, by the way. I think she puts out some very good information for both witnesses and ex-witnesses alike. She does give bipartisanship the old college try, which is not an easy thing to do, coming from where we did. Anyway, the video I watched of hers was entitled 10 Things I Liked About the Jehovah's Witnesses, and then in brackets, 10 I Didn't. It actually reminded me of one I made not long back called Were We Crazy? Why Did We Believe? In that work, I addressed a lot of stuff I felt was rational and praiseworthy about the witnesses. Many of us come from just unspeakable damage and hurt from that religion, and it can be easy to get consumed by that. So I wanted to show what beliefs or assumptions were worth holding on to. But today, I wanted to spend some more time on the behaviors and culture that is commendable. As a disclaimer, please don't feel that I'm defending any of their numerous corruptions. I've been very outspoken on that in the past. The reason for this today actually stems from an intellectual problem I had while transitioning from the witnesses. I didn't know how a moral system could be retained and carried over once one had lost their faith. It's a very common problem. So that's my angle. I'm not defending their corruptions. Being that the focus of my channel is on the law of attraction, I'll be showing how all of these realities were not resulting from having the truth, as we had thought as witnesses, but is actually connected to something much more grand, consistent, and unifying in our nature as human beings. Let's talk about it. Hey good people, I'm Derek London. Thanks for checking out my channel. Around here we talk about everything law of attraction. We discuss a lot about the psychological, scientific, and rational basis for subscribing to this philosophy of mine. And in fact, if your reality could stand some change for the better, you have only to start there, with your mind. Hit that subscribe button and settle in, because your life will never be the same. Hey everyone, thanks as always for stopping in. So there's going to be a little overlap here with the other video I mentioned. I wanted to say a couple of things about community. Since leaving the witnesses, I've had a chance to experience many church, social, and secular groups or meetups. The fraternity that exists among the Jehovah's Witnesses is certainly nothing unique. You can find it elsewhere. It's not Holy Spirit, it's human spirit. And that's important to understand. You can meet all kinds of spiritual and irreligious people alike who are absolutely solid, who will pull together during hardship and accept you for yourself. There are ones that will also keep you honest and accountable morally too. If you're coming away from the witnesses, be rest assured there's life beyond those congregation walls. Something I will say that is somewhat distinct about the witnesses and worth giving real focus as you make your way in the outside world is the level of hospitality that exists. For whatever reason, hospitality is really stressed in the teachings of the Jehovah's Witnesses. It was a big focus throughout that book, The Greatest Man Who Ever Lived, and the Draw Close to God book. I can't tell you how many Watchtower study articles that would allude to Abraham and Sarah's exemplary hospitality. I remember participating at Kingdom Hall cleanups, work bees, weekly Bible study groups, that's back when they had them in individual homes, or even when I went to Pioneer School. You were treated like total royalty. There was always so much generosity and leftovers. Oh my God, the leftovers. I think I gained like 15 pounds during Pioneer School. That might have just been the culture of the congregations I belonged to. I've heard some congregations aren't like that at all. But in my experience, hospitality was a very important quality among the witnesses. So if you're a leaver or a remainer, hold on to that. It's a beautiful thing. In that video I referenced earlier, I talked about morality, but more from an academic perspective. Now this is a huge one I want to talk about. As I made clear in that video, I'm not saying JWs are more ethical, I'm not saying they don't take things to extremes, and I'm the first to admit there are certain teachings and policies which are utterly immoral, such as shunning and harboring pedophiles. But what I addressed in that video was a kind of moral sophistication that existed uniquely because of certain assumptions they and other religious groups hold. I made a case that a God-grounded moral system, in specific respects, simply has no analogues. The witnesses often go to the other extreme of believing in moral absolutism, which is very unhealthy. That's contrasted, however, by what is very common in today's largely secular and atheistic world, which is profoundly relativistic. Nietzsche was right about what happens when general society kills God off like an extra in a play. He said, "How were we able to drink up the sea? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the entire horizon? What did we do when we unchained this earth from its sun? Whither is it moving now? Whither are we moving now? Away from all suns? Are we not perpetually falling? Backwards, sidewards, forward in all directions? Is there any up or down left? Are we not straying as through an infinite nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not become colder? Is it not more and more night coming on all the time? Do we not hear anything yet of the noise of the grave diggers who are burying God? God is dead. God remains dead. And we have killed him." This isn't just fantastical prose. It's the final gasp of any kind of serious moral sense-making our world can contemplate. Remember, Nietzsche was an atheist. He said, God remains dead. It's possible for the most profound of moral truths to be anchored to something of a fiction. And when I say fiction, I'm speaking in the legal sense, similar to the presumption of innocence. Even if God is dead, he is the most superlative idea we ever thought up. God stands as the principal opposition to ruthless, pornographic evil. I think ethics is far more complicated than just culture or survival or even cost-benefit considerations. There is this dimension of deontology that the witnesses do subscribe to, even though they never really used that term. If you want to learn more about this and what deontology is, please watch that video, Were We Nuts? Why Did We Believe? It'll be linked below in the description and in the end screen. Now, as I said, the witnesses obviously went overboard and in turn created an atmosphere of judgment and gossip. But I did find that in certain directions, on an individual level, the witnesses were very conscious of their ethics and sought to develop a sophistication that is quite rare outside the group or other religious communities. There is something missing in the moral system of today's world, which prescribes what's called hyper-consequentialist or utilitarian philosophy, which is contrasted from deontology. It took me a long time after waking up from the witnesses to identify what it was that was truly missing. So if you feel kind of strapped to the JWs for moral reasons, know that this is something that's been studied and you can retain a comprehensive ethical system independent of the witness doctrines. This leads me into the third category of what I'm calling community outreach. Okay, community outreach. So we all know the witnesses are not the type to set up a soup kitchen or a clinical rehabilitation center or charities or anything of that nature. And of course, the interests and bottom line of their leadership or their evangelism is what takes center stage. No one will dispute that here. But Jehovah's Witnesses deserve a lot of credit for assisting ones individually with addictions, marital trouble, literacy, teaching valuable skills in personal finance and industry. They offer prayer, encouragement, shepherding, or assistance to the elderly. My grandfather served on the hospital liaison committee for decades. And while I've spoken out about their diabolical policies regarding blood, they have also offered valuable medical support and saved a number of lives through that medium. I produced a video on the blood issue if you want to know comprehensively my views on that matter. It'll be linked below in the description. All of those, you could call them ministries in the community, need to be accounted for prior to judging them too harshly. Just as a side point here, I should also mention that I agree with that scripture about setting your own house in perfect order really being the best way of effecting good in the world. It's easy to protest and complain about social injustice, and of course, no one will deny that this can be a great form of activism. But connecting with people on an individual basis, teaching them how to be constructive members of society, lifting them up, imparting practical skills, helping with education and addictions. These are the best ways of changing the world. I just got a comment a few days ago from an ex-witness who said he's immensely grateful to them for helping recover from his gambling addiction. Now, he ultimately credited God and supposes it still could have happened without the witnesses. But he said they still have his appreciation for their part in helping him. And just like the other categories, that isn't something that is unique to the witnesses. In the law of attraction, for instance, this is a central philosophy. Set your own house in perfect order first. By shifting your perceptions and becoming a conduit of prosperity, wisdom, and hospitality does real progress take place in the world. As mentioned, it's not the only way, but I do believe it is the best way. Let's talk about the fourth category I really admire about the witnesses, how they've contributed to civil liberties. I don't have much time to really detail this, but I took a fairly deep dive into the matter in my video entitled Jehovah's Witnesses, A Fair Opinion. My favorite contributions they've made to society is in the matter of free speech, expression, and religious liberties. If it weren't for the Jehovah's Witnesses' aid in these respects, we may be living in an altogether unfamiliar and illiberal world. I think I've said enough on this topic, but they've garnered some very high praise from legal scholars and historians on this front. That video too will be linked below in the description. Now, my fifth and final thing I really liked about the witnesses, and again, this is only in specific regards because there were other ways that they worked counter to this, was in the matter of personal development. Oh yeah, I mean, we all know how God's impending kingdom was the final solution to everything, and so there was this defeatism that prevailed when it came to problems they felt were unsolvable. That aside, I think most of the people at the Kingdom Hall were interested in bettering themselves. How much of the instruction, especially in the Watchtower, was devoted to teaching people how to better their habits and personalities? I mentioned hospitality as one of them earlier, but others included punctuality, integrity, mildness and slowness to anger, generosity, forgiveness, honesty, self-control, temperance, moderation, and a good work ethic. This is to say very little regarding their public speaking education, which was nothing short of world-class either. I actually place a lot of importance on that. I remember thinking, even while I was a witness, how possibly the best spoken public official we had seen in recent history was Barack Obama. And yet I would say that most of the elders I knew had his eloquence or even superior. Public speaking is given almost zero appreciation in this day and age, and it's so profoundly valuable. Look around at your politicians. It's rare to see one who is reasonably competent. I mean, Donald Trump, Justin Trudeau, and George Bush are virtually unlistenable and frequently incoherent. It's sad to think that the likes of Hillary Clinton, Stephen Harper, and Bernie Sanders look like Bill Gove in comparison. And these people are in front of cameras every day. So when it comes to personal development, the Jehovah's Witnesses do a lot of good. But sure, they didn't own the franchise on it by any means. This is what's so great about the law of attraction. It's not a substitute for people's personal views, like the way the witnesses were. You kind of had to accept all the metaphysical assumptions for their personal development to work. So the law of attraction is complementary to one's personal views. But there are some fantastic cognitive reframing techniques you can use to aid in personal development. I'll attach a playlist in the description and in the end screen so you can see what sort of habits and tools you can use to that end. Anyway, folks, those are some things I really liked about my experience with the witnesses. I hope I've shown how life does exist outside of this religion and piqued your curiosity to investigate further, that is, if you're still a member. Let me know what you think of all that below in the comments, and we'll see you on the other side. This is Derek London. Until next time. Hey guys, did you like this video? You know what to do. And if something I mentioned today resonated with you, click one of them cards on this screen. I have lots of related content sure to interest you. Thanks as always for your views, and we'll see you next time.